Hello, football fans. It's finally here. It is draft week. It's Tuesday night, and that means one thing. Every year for the last 7, 8 years, the Tuesday before the draft, I release my draft board. Every prospect that I feel has a draft-worthy grade and can fit in an NFL roster. I have my slants towards your favorite team, but that's okay. Welcome in. It's Tuesday night. I'm Ryan. This is me going rogue. And we're going to go over my draft board tonight. I'm going to give you my guys, the guys that I think that they're destined for, if not greatness, eliteness in this particular league. And it's going to be a lot of fun. How you doing, Adam? Lots of folks joining in. I want to give a shout out. Hey, way to go. It's hard sometimes to catch the lives. And the Tuesday night one is going to be a lot of fun. Hayden, welcome in as well. Nice to see you guys. A couple of preambles. Announcement for tomorrow night. Tomorrow's going to be special. If you guys are not a subscriber to this channel, go ahead and get clicked right now. We have something special for you. Jesus, Brenda, I know you guys know this is coming, but nice to see you. We have something special tomorrow night in that our friends over from KCSN and Ken Swanson and Maddie Lane joined us, and we held our annual NFL Draft Summit. And we recorded the whole thing. It's about an hour and 20 minutes of just real talk about dissecting this draft class. We do it every year. It's kind of cathartic and fun for all of us. You guys are going to get to see it in its entirety for the first time ever. Usually I cut it down, make it a little bit more digestible. We went for the whole thing this time. And it's going to hit this channel tomorrow night about this same time. So be prepared for that. I think you guys are really going to dig it. It's always fun for us, and it leads to a lot of fun. Now, right now, over on the old Twitter machine, you're going to see something new. I just tweeted this show out, but even more important, they finally dropped. And what that means is very specifically that Dan and I both have released, as of tonight, about 10, 15 minutes ago, both of our draft boards onto NFL33.com. They're free and unlocked. Substack is a paid platform. Yes, to get all the interior content, you got to be a member. But to get these draft boards, our final product, they're free, and they always will be. They're there right now. You just come over to NFL33.com, and it'll send you to the Substack. Click on either of us, and what you're going to find is that there's a little link to the draft guide if you haven't gotten that. And since you guys are watching RGR, use the code RGR. You'll get a discount. And this image is going to take you to a download of my draft board. It's in a PDF form. You can print it out. You can download it. It's super simple. It makes life easy. And I'm going to show you a slightly different version of this one because I've already got it kind of blown up. And this is what we're going to go through tonight. I'm going to show you my guys. I'm going to show you the guys that I'm convinced can either play for Kansas City or can play somewhere else and be very, very good in this league. I'm going to give you the question marks. I'm going to tell you everything that I've got. So if you would please like, sub, hit the bell. If you're not already a subscriber or a member of this channel, you can get that much more. I just put out 3 or 4 days ago a members video that was pretty short. I'm going to kind of rant in the next day or two before the draft. My last thoughts, rumors, that kind of thing, that will be coming. But let's get into it because I am not your typical analyst of the NFL draft. If you guys don't know me, for those of you that are catching this later, I'm a former physiologist and strength and conditioning coach. I've run my own business. I've trained upwards of 50 athletes that ended up in the NFL. That's the perspective that I come from. I grade film. I have Rogue Analytics where we do my own elite algorithmic look at athleticism, as well as all of our production statics. That all goes into the draft guide, and that's all taken into account here. What you're going to see that's interesting is that this draft board, mine in particular, is not a straight repackaging of what's in the draft guide because I produced that. Dan produced that. EJ produced it. You guys met Jeff Porter in the draft series. He's been in on it. We have a lot of contributors to it. And so there's then always a little bit of flavor that are with everybody's individual board about how they would attack something. And that's what I'm going to do here. In fact, I'm going to try to even make this a little bit cleaner and get us to where we can see everything super simple. I'm going to blow this up and take myself off of here. I'll probably be a little box down here on the bottom. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it. If you would give me a like on this one, if you like the content and you like where we're going, looks like I'm going to have to zoom in, and that's fine. We'll take some halvesies and we'll look at the rankings as we go through. Now, again, this is all started by the draft guide and everything that we do at Rogue APC, but this is my take on it. You can see quarterbacks are the thing, right? They're actually going to be helpful in this one. I only have 4 first rounders that I'm comfortable seeing go, and I am cleanly happy with Michael Penix being in the middle of the round. I'm going to tell you this. There are 2 teams in particular that I think for various reasons are going to be in on Michael Penix in the first round. That's the Las Vegas Raiders and the Seattle Seahawks. I do believe that. And yes, they just paid Geno Smith some money in Seattle, but the former Washington offensive coordinator is now the offensive coordinator in Seattle. He's a hometown hero. He nearly brought a national championship to the city. I think there's a lot that goes into that, and I do think that they're going to be interested. Maybe they've been laying low, but I don't think the future quarterback of the franchise is in Seattle right now. So that's where I'm at. For the Kansas City Chiefs, that's a good thing because it pushes more players down. And you're going to see here, I've ranked all the quarterbacks down. I'm higher on or lower on Spencer Rattler than Dan is, but I think he can be taken in the third and be comfortable. I don't know if he's going to pan out. That's how thin this class is. Everybody in the 21 class has now been traded, right? The 20 class is iffy. This might be another class that if you're not at the top, if you're not in the top 4, certainly the top 6 are possibilities. You might not make it. I think that's very true of the running back class as well. You can see here that I don't have a first-round running back on my board. You guys probably could see that coming. Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Wright, and Trey Benson are the running backs that I think are the best in this class. I have guys that I like, and I'm going to give you my guy. If you didn't get it for the quarterback, my guy is Michael Penix. For the running back class, it's Marshawn Lloyd. I really like what he does, and I think that he's a guy that is a well-rounded enough athlete that he can make do in whatever offense he's asked to participate in. I think he can do that, and that's my guy at the running back position. I would love to see Jalen Wright in this offense for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if that's going to happen. And if you're a fan of another team, don't worry. This is generally a Chiefs first channel, but we cover the entire league, and I'm going to get to some of the other fits as well. Now, at the top, if you disagree with this, it's perfectly legit, but I don't see Marvin Harrison Jr. as the number 1 in this draft. I like Marvin. I think he's elite, and I do think he has the potential to end up being the best in this class. But right now, I'm not certain of that. I think there is a possibility to get him off of his routes. I think there is a possibility to hit him enough that he isn't the dynamo that we've seen him, especially without CJ Stroud. Let's be real. The drop off from that, and unless he lands with a quarterback of similar ilk, he's going to be in a rough shape. I come back to one play, and it's the championship game from last year where he got hit to the point that he had to leave the ball game. And that's a concern for me. I don't like that he didn't train. He didn't perform for any of the preseason, pre-draft cycle. Maybe people will tell you that you shouldn't take that into account. I do. I think if you're a competitor, get out there and compete. Roman Dunze was not scared to do that. Neither was Brian Thomas. Malik Neighbors kind of half-assed it. Did compete some, but not enough. Was not willing to put it all out there on the line. And that's why I give a little bit more credit to Odunze, who is one of my guys in this position group, along with we go down. Obviously, there's a lot to like. You guys have heard me talk about Jalen Polk this entire draft cycle. I do have him as a second-round pick. Nothing against Peter Schrager, but I think that's a little lofty for him. And while I do have Ladd McConkey and Donnie Mitchell over him, there are drawbacks with all of these receivers after you get out of those top 4. Very similar to the quarterback class. For Jalen, it's can he really stress a defense enough with athleticism to make himself a number 1? I'm not certain of that. But he can be an elite number 2 receiver. He can do everything else other than stretch beyond, say, 20, 25 yards. He's not scaring safeties out of their pants like Mitchell and obviously Xavier Worthy are. He doesn't have quite the underneath ability, especially the change of direction, the short area quickness that Ladd McConkey has, but he's pretty good. Ricky Pearsall, same way. A guy that I think can perform underneath, can still go outside and get some things done. He's a little less fragile, a little more fragile, I'm sorry, than Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk's got a good bit of armor on his body. He's thick in ways that I won't call him Tyreek Hill. Tyreek is super thick, but he's thicker than Troy Franklin, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, Donnie Mitchell. They're all thinner than he is in terms of like bulk. And so I do think that allows him to make it a little bit farther. So Jalen, you guys know and have known that he is one of my guys in this class. I've talked about Cowing later on day 3. Day 3 is a thinner prospect this year. I'll show you guys the totals here in a second, but it's a thinner group. If I had to pick a second my guy on this running back class, it would be Will Shipley. If I had to pick a second my guy, it'd probably be Cowing in the wide receiver group. I think all of these guys have some warts and some minuses, and I think any of them could hit. I do have a soft spot for Jordan Whittington. I'm not sure he's going to make it in the NFL. I don't know if there's enough athleticism there for him to sustain, but I like what he does. He's tenacious. He's tough. He'll block his butt off, and I appreciate all those things. And you have a very good point, Kyle. There are a lot of receivers. And so here's what happens. At the bottom of this board, you're going to see the totals. So when you go download this, feel free. It's just a PDF. Anybody can open it. You're going to see along the bottom the positional totals. So I have 12 draftable quarterbacks. I have 16 draftable running backs. I have 31 wide receivers. That's not necessarily, yes, it's large, but it's not necessarily atypical. It does happen because you need 3 of them in a modern NFL offense. 11 personnel is really a thing. So you get down to these guys where you're taking shots at guys in the 6th and 7th. 4th, 5th, you're expecting them to come around year 2 and be contributors. You're looking to find part-time starters in round 2, and you're looking for a guy that is a day 1 starter and can push for a Pro Bowl in round 1. That's what the wide receiver tiers mean to me, and that's how I've set up this board. And you're absolutely right. I think the Chiefs should draft a couple of them. Chase, I like Bucky as well. I'm just not sure, again, size-wise, survival-wise. I like the style of Estime. I like the craftiness that Bucky Irving brings. I think the medium there is Will Shipley, as I said before, and I do like him. We move on to the tight ends, and there's no surprise that Brock Bowers is here. Again, when you get the draft guide download, or the draft board, you'll be able to see a little bit more. I have some symbols that I use on mine. This side-to-side emoji is going to mean a positional change. I do have a few of those this year. Guys that I am concerned about off the field is going to get a red flag, and injury concerns or something in particular that kept them either out of the end of the season or out of the draft process are going to get a red dot. If a guy chose not to participate as much in the draft process, he gets an asterisk because that's something that I look at as well. And you can see the rest of the positional totals are down here as well. A lot more even throughout the rest of the class. As it stands total, I have 118 prospects draftable on the offensive side, and I have 91 on the defensive side. That tells you a lot about the class, especially in retrospect with the others. Chris says that if Bowers is there at 12, he's doing it. And I think that's certainly valid. 12 is held by the Broncos right now tonight as we speak. We'll see if that ends up being true. I could see the Cardinals training with them and the Cardinals being on the clock at 12. And if the guy isn't there that the Cardinals want, I could see the Chiefs trading up to 12. So that is, I think, in a roundabout way, a possibility. Now, it's hard not to say that Brock Bowers is your guy, but he's everybody's guy. I like the positional change for Johnny Wilson going over to the tight end spot, and you'll see that it is very, very conspicuous. The only second-round prospect I have is a wide receiver change. Sinnott is great. I think I had to get comfortable with him in the 3rd. That's where I'm at. And Sanders has been more productive than he has been, I think, demonstrating prowess. Like, he's got a ways to go. The rest of these guys each have some strengths, including Theo, Wiley, decent athletes. Ryman's like the best athlete in this group. You guys know that I like Dallin Halker as a guy, much like Johnny Wilson, that can line up, attached, but not necessarily in line. He's not a true blocker, but then can go to H and can go to split out and can go wide if he has to, just like Travis Kelce does. And so there's a connection there. The guy that most people don't know that has been injured, I believe it was a thumb, kept him out of the draft process, is a guy that you didn't see a lot until the national championship game, but he caught all those underneath passes. And he's a guy that I think is an upgrade over Noah Gray in what Noah Gray does for the Chiefs. And so I don't think he ends up in Kansas City, but that's the kind of player that you're getting with him. And I do think that that has value. The H-type guy is here. If the Chiefs were to take a flyer on a guy based on athleticism, it's going to be the kid from Illinois and Ryman, or maybe even Devin Colt, who's a better athlete than he is a productive player at Washington. But I do think the Chiefs might enjoy him. Now, I know you guys are going to have some questions in here. I haven't been able to get to them yet, but let me take a couple here as we pause before we get into the lineman. Is it impossible for the Chiefs to trade to 4 for Alt? Why not? Just because you can afford picks at this point? It's not impossible. No, it's definitely not, Josh. Or Josiah, sorry. It's just really costly. So it won't happen until draft night if it does happen. But the Cardinals have said they're going to be on the clock. They've said, hey, we are going to be open for business. We ain't scared. We ain't crying. We're taking calls. I think that that call is worth making. It's going to cost at least this number 1 at 32, next year's number 1, next year's number 3, and probably a 4th or 5th next year, if not this year. At least 4 picks to get up to number 4. It's going to be super expensive. I don't think that can be for Brock Bowers, and I don't think it can be for a wide receiver. Unless Zay falls, well, I guess he wouldn't have to fall to 4. But if you're going up to 4, I'm taking the left tackle, and I'm locking down Patrick Mahomes' backside for the next 10 years, knowing that you'll have to give a second contract to an offensive tackle. But I need somebody that can protect him and keep him upright and protect the second half of Patrick Mahomes' career. That's what I'm looking for. So not impossible, that's for sure. Let's see. We had another question. Latavius, nice to see you, bud. I like Marshawn Lloyd. I do too. His vision sometimes lags. I haven't, I did my normal perusal 3-game kind of thing. Didn't dig deep on running backs because I got to see him live a few times. And I do think he can hit it when he needs to hit it. Sometimes he does get caught off guard. But I will say this, in Mobile, he was the best back there. I think he dispelled some of that. And I think he understands where he's got to go. He's not a finished product. But I think he's a guy that can turn into a primary ball carrier for an NFL team, and I'd love him in a role in a committee in Kansas City. I think that would be awesome. So, you guys, I'll take any of the super chats for sure tonight. I appreciate your hospitality, and I will try to get to all the rest of the questions. But let's get back to the board in its fullness right now and see where we're at. So we've gone through the wide receivers. We've gone through the tight ends. Joe Alt is, I think, the best all around, not only the best tackle right now, but I think he's the most projectable for longevity in this league and a guy that can get back to his dad's level and be an all-pro. I think that's in the cards. And so I do have him number 1. I have Olaf 2. He had a letdown season, I would call it. But last year, he's the best tackle in football, better than Alt was. So, yes, there's still potential there. I think he's still young. Where I go different from most people is I think Troy Fautanu from the Washington Huskies is number 3. I think he is a guy that brings the nasty. I think he plays with great leverage, great energy. He's an attacker. He's an athlete in an athlete's body. The guy played volleyball forever. He is impressive. He's got the arm length that everyone was scared of with. So that is the only question. It checked it off for me. You can start him at left tackle. You can start him at left guard. You can start him at right guard. You can start him at right tackle. It doesn't matter to me. He's one of the best 5 players. If he gets drafted on the Chiefs roster, he's one of the best 5 tomorrow. That's the truth. And I do think that there's questions about Amarius Mims in terms of his ability to stay healthy and his ability to develop. We'll see. He could end up being the best tackle in this group, sure. But it's a road, and he's got to stay on the road. I have questions about Zalise Fuaga. I think he's better as a guard, probably, to tell you the truth. I see too much of Orlando Brown in it. His feet are much better, absolutely. But the pad level's up there. He reaches and lunges too much for me. I don't see him as a top prospect. I have him in the second round for that reason. And sometimes you know that I will go off the rails from time to time. So be prepared. I'm going to remove a couple of things here real quick. Sorry for the technical issues here, folks. Going to get that shared back up onto the screen here now. And there we go. Apologies. So that said, I think there's questions with Mary Smith. I think there's questions with Fuaga. JC Latham sat out this process on his own. No significant injury that anyone's aware of that I have certainly seen. I think he's kind of a right only. He's definitely young and more on the raw side. And another guy that I think could end up best at guard. So I have dropped him down some. Then Tyler Guyton, we've talked about a ton. Kingsley Suamataia, we have talked about a ton. We haven't given Roger Rosengarten enough credit. And I do think he is in this third tier group. Folks are going to probably put Latham and Talise Fuaga with Mims in the second tier. That's fine with me. I could still consider that. If we had to move these guys down, I could call that the third. But the first group is clearly for me these three guys, Alt, Fashanu, and Fautanu, and then Mims, Fuaga, and Latham as tier 2. Tier 3, Guyton, Suamataia, and Roger Rosengarten and what I have. Beyond that, Blake Fisher, Kieran Ameneje, I believe is how it's pronounced. I'm going to get that when we find out. And Patrick Paul would be tier 4. Not out of the realm of possibility for Kansas City or anybody else. So it is still there. Terry, what do you think about drafting a QB late like Jordan Travis from Florida State? I think that's an interesting one, and you must have seen where I had him because I have him late in the 6th. I think it's a possibility. I also have Joe Milton on there too, just so you know, because Joe Milton can take a sneak and he can throw a bomb. And if you had to have somebody come in that's physically similar to Patrick Mahomes for a game or two, you'd hope he could hand the ball off and hit a couple of passes. He might be a better tight end than he is a quarterback, but I agree. And Jordan Travis, I think, has still got a long way to go. But I do think, Terry, that could be an interesting backup role. It's going to be fun. No, this is not another mock draft, T. This is my full-on draft board. Hopefully everything's back. I see you guys saying that it died. Hopefully you can see me again. Let me know, please, in the chat. Ben, what do you got? Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. All things Chiefs. Oh, thank you. Keep up the great work. What round would you take a linebacker, if at all? Can't take him in the top 100 here. I do like a couple of guys. We're going to get to them here shortly. But for the Chiefs, I don't think I could take one in the first 2 days. I do think that there is a possibility that the Chiefs are on that role as well. Some of the best athletes at linebacker are going to be on day 3, and I think that that's a great value to take it. But it's all going to be depending on how the board falls. So rock on. Okay, so it looks like we're good. Thank you guys for helping me out. Appreciate you, FLDB. Chase, you're not wrong. He is a bit undersized, as is Fautanu. And he is primarily a right, but he has played left in high school. He can do it, and he has had to fill in, I believe. So I'm not concerned about it. It's also the fact that if we're talking about the Chiefs, Juwan Taylor can play both sides as well. I am confident in that. Some long shots here that I have on. My guys here are going to be obviously Fautanu because I'm just that guy. And I do like the athleticism from Tyler Grable. I'm really intrigued because I didn't get film, but as I understand from someone who has seen his film, Theo Benedette is an absolute possibility to be drafted. Much like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif was. He played at the University of British Columbia in Canada, and I think he's out there. If I had to pick on my guy on day 3, it's probably going to be a toss-up, but I would go – I don't know. It's a tough one for me. I've been trying to go back and forth on this all day long. The guy that really would have me most comfortable is probably Matt Goncalves. So the pit tackle that I think can do a little bit of everything, I think I'm comfortable there. Now, we move on to the interior offensive line. Something Chiefs do need in a sneaky way because of what's coming next year. I do have Barton over Johnson Powers Jackson right now. And I do have Jordan Morgan over here as a positional change to guard. And I do think that he's a guy that could be available. These guys might both go in the first round. I have Barton as a first rounder above Morgan. But Jordan Morgan could be a guy that the Chiefs look at. If they get stuck in a position where they're at 32 and they can't trade out again, he could be somebody there. Christian Haynes is a good player. I think he's going to grow. I do like Mahogany, and obviously I've been partial to Dominic Pooney. It would be a position change for him as well, but I do think he'll start inside. My guy here is going to be a little bit farther down because the guy that reminds me of Trey Smith in this draft is Layden Robinson. And if there's a possibility of losing Trey Smith next year to free agency, I wouldn't mind drafting somebody who plays like him, and I do like him. I also like Drake Nugent. He's an undersized center that's super nasty, and I like the way that he plays now that the Chiefs will need him. And as I've said multiple times the last 2 weeks, the value of the draft, the next Trey Smith that is going to fall due to his injury, I think is going to be Zach Zinner, and I think he could end up an all-pro. So my guys there at the interior offensive line are a little bit more plentiful. It's a middling group. The tail end isn't great, and it's not very high. Same thing with the defensive line group. Byron Murphy, I had to struggle. I went back and forth with Johnny Newton being a first rounder or not. I think he goes in the first round, but I don't know if I had him as a graded that high. And so he ends up in the first, just slightly ahead of Jenkins, Aurora, Fisk, and Darius Robinson. I think, and I'm listing Darius as an inside defensive tackle because I think that's his home, and I think that's where his future is. I don't think he's going to be able to live outside full time. The guy that I like here, my guy is Aurora. I do like his game. I like his body type. His length is good. I like where he's coming from. The other guys down the list, you can see I did put Sweat in the fourth. I'm hearing that he is a day 3 prospect at best at this point. There are teams that have him off their board. Between the weight and the DUI, I think that's enough and makes sense. Guys that I'll be watching are the LSU big, long guy, Mason Smith, and Fabian Lovett. Love it. I think those are guys that could make it. I was high on Gabe Hall early in the process. He still looks like he could be an option for Kansas City. It's going to be a day 3 guy, but I would put a my guy tag on him as well. Then we get to the edge rushers, and I know we have a couple of questions in the super chat. I appreciate the support. Let's get to those now. Sean Veach says he only has 16 round 1 grades. Anyone who drafted 32 is a reach. Example, FAU. That's exactly how it goes. It goes that way most years. I actually thought that Veach said he had 21 first rounders, same as me. And they do have another count here that you'll see here. Hopefully, let me make sure it's on the screen. Yes, it is. So when you download the board, you'll see on the far right-hand side is how many prospects I have at each round. I have 21 first rounders. I have 45 second rounders and 35 third rounders. And you can see it falls from there. 33 in the fourth, 29, 25, 19. Only 19 guys in the 7th round. That's pretty atypical. That tells you that it gets thin on day 3. So if you're going to make your hay, let's get up there and make it is my point. So I actually have the last bottom count is just below that is 207. That is the total number of prospects I have on my board with draftable grades right now. Veach said he actually has 221, but he did make the caveat that 6th and 7th are mostly guys that he's going to pull in as UDFA if he can. And that makes sense given what I'm seeing here is that the prospects just die off at that point in terms of volume. Let's see here. Lontavius, real quick, where can I find film and not just highlights? Thanks in advance. Well, that's the hardest part of this job is finding the film. You have to beg, borrow, and steal. I have to trade a lot of favors to get a lot of the film that I get from college guys that have access to it. So it is a huge, huge problem. And honestly, COVID made it worse for me. There are places that you can get it on a pay-for service. PFF Ultimate is one of them. Currently, they only sell that to teams. So it does make it very, very difficult. I don't have a good way to tell you to go get it yourself, Lontavius. It's a barter system for the most part. Wink, nice to see you. Johnny Wilson could be our X for a couple years, groomed for Kelsey replacement later. Is that crazy? I don't think that's crazy. I don't think you'll have a position switch, though. I think he's raw enough that if you're gonna get him where you want him to replace Kelsey, you got to get him a tight end now and get him training up right now. Because the way that he has to do things is different. And he does have to expand his skill set if he's going to tight end. I like that idea. Could he function as a giant slot? Maybe. Could he function as an X receiver? Yes, probably. I just don't think he fits the profile for Kansas City of an X. He has to be more explosive in that position. I don't think he has that. He's a lot more of a build-up guy. I do like him as a tight end, though, so I'm with you there. Thank you, Alec. Appreciate you very much. Fautano falls to the late teens. What is your trade package to get up to who? 95, 173, and our third next year can get us to 19. Yes. In reality, if you're going to give up next year's third, you can probably get it done for 32 and next year's third and maybe 173. And you can get up to 19. I think 22, 23, 24 is probably more likely. But yes, PFF's machine will let you do it for that. I think in reality, that is exactly it. It's right there above 20, just before 20, that once the Bengals go off the clock at 18, I think that's when Chiefs are going to start springing whatever they have to spring to get where they want to go. So I like that plan, and I like where you're coming from, Alec. Appreciate you. Okay, on to the edges. I am a little bit different, and that I am not, for the first time in quite a long time, putting edge athletic matrix number 1 as edge number 1. Because Dallas Turner is a heck of an athlete. He is by far matrix number 1 at the edge position. But he drops into coverage a lot. He isn't as productive as Latu. He isn't as powerful as Verse. And I'm just not sure I don't necessarily believe he can be Brian Burns. But that's the body type. That's the athleticism profile that we're looking at. So I'm going with the surer thing in that Leotu Latu is a better technical pass rusher right now than half the guys that start in the league. He's not overly strong. He's not overly long, but he gets it done with effort, understanding angles, and a willingness to just keep attacking. His motor is probably the best in this class of any defensive front 7 player, and he doesn't get the credit for it. So I just want to outline that. I have him as edge 1 because I think his skills immediately translate. Will he get beat up in the run? Yes. Hopefully, the spinal fusion is something he's getting past. It's been 2 years, and he hasn't had a recurring injury. So if the teams are comfortable, I do have a red dot on him, but that's the way it goes when you have a significant injury. I'm still going to be comfortable with him because I think technically he'll be able to survive. Maybe he'll have to be a little bit wider 9. Maybe he doesn't rush inside as much as he did at UCLA, but he can get it done. And I think the farther he gets away from the injury, the more he'll be able to build up his strength reserves. And I think he's a unique pass rusher. If he can get stronger, he could turn into somebody that pushes the button and becomes the best pass rusher in this league for his time. Then obviously Turner. Verse is a power guy. He's a guy that fits Kansas City in terms of power first, doesn't have a lot of spin, doesn't have a lot of counter, but he plays hard. He plays through tackles, and I think the Chiefs would like him. I don't know that they'd trade up for him, but if he were to fall, say, to 23 or 24, that might be the case. Chop Robinson, I have him on this board, but I don't like him in Kansas City. I disagree with several people that I have heard say that he is an edge, a true edge, defensive end possible. No, he is an outside linebacker to me, and nothing will change that. I know he's got a decent weight behind him. He doesn't play like it. He runs into brick walls constantly. He does not deliver power, and I do not want him on this roster for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're going to put him at a 3-4 outside linebacker and ask tight ends to block him, I'm your man. Set him loose. Chris Braswell is much more powerful than him, but doesn't have the first step. Obviously, Chop is explosive. Marshawn Nealon is tied to the Chiefs and is a big-bodied guy, too, with a little bit more explosion. I can see why the Chiefs are in on him. I wouldn't call any of them my guys. My guys are going to be a little bit lower. It's going to be Braylon Trice. Again, a power guy that is good with his hands but not great, has some bend but not a lot. He just doesn't finish enough. And I think that can be trained into him. He produced the most pressures in college football the last 2 years running. He took a lot of stabs at it. Percentage-wise, he was about 7th. And that's still very, very good, but it doesn't necessarily equate right away. I think with the right coach, he can become a monster. The other, my guy, is Muhammad Kamara, who I think has the body that can grow into being an elite pass rusher, but he is just raw. I think he shows signs of being able to change his pad level to kind of throttle some of his pass rushes to have a better plan. Once he gets coached up for that, I think he's going to be able to put it together. The last guy I would take a flyer on, I won't call him my guy, but I do like him, is the third UCLA rusher, Grayson Murphy, very raw, hasn't really clicked for him yet. I think it could. And for a 7th round pick, I think it's worth the investment. Now, we're going to get right now, as the phone starts ringing, to the linebacker crew, as we were asked for before. I have Edgerrin Cooper tops. He is the best athlete in this group. I like Colson a lot. And then when I say Edgerrin's the best athlete, I mean all around in all ways. Peyton Wilson is the fastest, most linear athlete for sure. He's got good lateral quickness, doesn't deliver the power. I think Edgerrin's more well-rounded. I like Colson as well, bit undersized. But the three of them are light years ahead of Trotter, and he is a good distance ahead of Liufau, Marist Liufau from Notre Dame, who I really do like. When you watch Notre Dame tape, he's the guy who's going to remind you of Troy Polamalu because of his hair. He's not an elite athlete. He's a guy that's a role player, but I think he's got a great instinct and feel for the game, and I think he can grow into a starter for somebody. Then I come back with Gray. The athletes are the guys that are going to be mine. Tyron Hopper, Edifon Olufascio, and Jalen Ford. Those are my guys in the linebacker group because they're all athletes. Fascio is linebacker, I believe, 3 in the matrix. No, he's linebacker 1. I lied. But he doesn't have the production. He doesn't have the experience. So I would rely on those guys as being my guys here late in the linebacker group. Now, let's see. I know a little off topic here, but I always feel like you and Dan and RGR are really tuned into football, and I was wondering why. You guys rock, and RGR does too. Love your working to keep it up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Dan's done a great job at educating himself. I played college ball at KU. Didn't play. I went. I practiced a lot at KU. Didn't play. I coached football for a while. I was a GA at Kansas. I coached athletes in terms of physiology, strength conditioning, sports development. I coached that for 20 years. That's where I come from, and that's why I try to bring that perspective here, and I'm glad that you enjoy it. I appreciate that. Dan's been a student of the game and has been coming on as the years go by and getting better and better and better, and that's why. He's got some great mentors. I'm proud to call myself one of them. Damian Parson is another, and there's a group of guys that have helped him come along. You're going to hear from him about football for a very long time. Tano, thank you. What do you think about waiting on tackle and drafting Patrick Paul? I feel like all the things he's missing can be trained up, and he's always been at left tackle. I think that's an option later. I will say he's a project. I feel like he's farther behind. Not that he's behind. He's not as advanced now as Wanye Morris was last year when he came out. So I don't see him pushing Wanye out of the way. And that's the concern. If they're going to go tackle, I think they have to go elite, and I think they have to wipe that need off the board for Patrick going forward. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. But I do like his feet. He's a better athlete than he is a football player right now. But I do agree with you. I think he can be coached up and he can grow into something. If they can't get an elite tackle and they have to go in a different position, I definitely should be on their short list to come back and get. And let's see. I think I have him high in the 3rd. I do. So this equates basically to about pick 30. No, I'm sorry. About pick 70 right there. So I'm with you. And I think you're on track for recognizing that he has something to offer. Gary, nice to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining in. Everybody, Gary's one of our mods. Give him a shout, will you? So we talked linebackers. Last 2 positions here. And kudos to our guy, EJ, who did all of the primary film grades on the defensive backfield this year. He's worked with us a couple of years, and he's really coming into his own. He's going to be on the draft streams with us some this weekend. And remember, Draft Summit tomorrow with the KCSN guys, and then we're live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the NFL draft. Saturday, we made Brian get up into chunks, but we're definitely going to be live multiple times this whole draft weekend like we always are. Now, the only first-round grade I could give to a corner was Mitchell because he's well-rounded, he's a good athlete, and he barely made it in on my board. Nate Wiggins has power problems, has a couple of tackling issues. You've heard much about him. Terry Arnold didn't test very well. He plays great on the field. Go watch the LSU tape. I was really happy with him. I think he shows you everything that you need to know. I think Kool-Aid was the primary coming in this last year. He fell off, but he's still a guy that I think can give you a jolt and give you what you're looking for in the defensive backfield, especially in a man team. but they all have flaws. So everything kind of falls off. Sandistro from Michigan, do like his game. He's a nickel only in my eyes. Same with Andrew Phillips. I like his game as well. Max Melton is the best athlete in this group, and he is one of my guys. I think he plays well enough to warrant the 3rd round pick, and I think the elite athleticism is what I'm here for. So Quinnen in the 1st or Melton in the 3rd, I'll take the 3rd, thanks. I have a soft spot for Kyrie Jackson. He's one of my guys as well. Not the elite athlete, older prospect, but a guy that's been around the block and he knows what he's doing. I think he could adapt to the system. I think he would fit in Kansas City in terms of physicality and length. I do like it. I think he came in at 6'02", so 6'2.5", something like that. Bernardo Green is also one of my guys. You heard me talk about him, though. He's really aggressive. I do like Ryan Watts. This would be a position change as well. And I could take Josh Newton, but I think those are probably the guys that I would identify as mine. You can notice here, too, that only 23 corner prospects. Usually that's a lot closer to the volume of wide receivers, and it's just not the case this year. Here's the really interesting thing. I talked about the beginning of the show when we were talking about Marvin Harrison, that hit that took him out of the game and that he can be conquered. That happened with Javon Bullard, an undersized safety that played a star position for them, played a little bit of robber. He can play nickel. He can play free. He can play too high, certainly. And he can do a little bit of everything. In terms of being able to be a true guy at that spot, I really like him a lot. He's one of my guys. Cooper DeJean is a better athlete, and he's got better interior man-on-man nickel coverage skills, in my opinion. I think they play the same position, though. I think they are a slot safety, both of them. Very much so is brethren of Javon Bullard in Kamari Lassiter. I love his game. He tested terribly. And guys that run I have him at 4.59. That's still not a good time. He broke on multiple people's watches that I've heard of. He broke 4.6. Still not the greatest thing. I think you have to back him off. He has to play a little bit more in space. He's a natural nickel, and I think you can still do that some of the time. But if you have like deep threats out of the nickel, I think he has to be backed off. I think he's more of a slot safety here as well. Then followed by Cole Bishop. Not the most productive, but a good athlete all around. Tyler Newman's the most productive guy here, and he is one of my guys. I'm just not sure athletically if he's going to be able to keep up and continue his role. But once you get a knack for taking the ball away, I think you have a knack for taking the ball away. So I do like that. Bo Braid, I thought played well at the Senior Bowl. He's fallen down boards. Dominic Hampton from UW is rising boards, and I'm happy to see it because I thought he was a guy that was underrated before. You could take a flyer. Dan's really big on Oladapo. I'm fine with that. Kitchens has fallen down a little bit, same as Tyke Smith. Both those guys, I think, are great recovery projects that Brett Veach likes to select, and I think they could be options. So those are my guys on my board. Gonna get this here. Last couple of questions, and we'll call it a night. Any Iowa guys on your board with any Chiefs picks? Eric All's going to be on the board. I just don't know if they're going to want to pull the trigger where he's expected to go. I have him as a 5th. I think most people expect him to go in the 4th. I don't know if they're going to be able to go there. That would mean they have to take him at 95, and I'm not terribly comfortable with it. Cooper DeJean, obviously, if they get stuck at 32 and he's still on the board for some reason, whether it's fit or whether it's the injury, I mean, all day long, Alex, all day long. So those are the two that I can come off the board right away. Cody, any idea on the South Dakota Greenfield? Combine vertical was a record amongst linemen, possibility for the Chiefs. He's on my board specifically just because of that. Where did I put him? I want to say it's in the 6th. No, I lied. It's in the 7th. He is on there specifically because of that. I got half a game, basically, because it was so bad of his film. I thought he looked fine. He moves well. I think the athleticism did show up on what I saw. Just the level of competition is just so hard to predict. I think that's what you're seeing across the league is a lot of guys from the small schools have not been able to make the jump because of the level of competition. And I can't say that I blame them. It's a tough world out there. Making that leap is difficult. And so I put him on the board, but low so that it doesn't come with any kind of expectations. That's where I'm at. Great question, Cody. And I'm glad you brought it up. So that's where I'm at today, folks. That is the draft board. You can go get it for free at NFL33.com. I'll show you again. It's like right here. This is mine. Dan's is on here as well. Mr. Harms did a good job, and we definitely have some differences starting at offensive tackle. I think you guys will be intrigued by that. You can download them both. They are ready to go free of charge to everyone right now at NFL33.com, and that will take you to this page right here. If you like it, please subscribe. Hang in there. A lot of our content is behind the paywall because that's how Substack works. That's how you make the site work. And so if you like it, please stick around and join the subscription. We appreciate the support. Tomorrow night, the Draft Summit with the KCSN crew. We're going to knock it all down and go through it all. I think you guys will really enjoy it. We had a great time recording it, so I hope that you'll dig it. And then Thursday night, we hit the ground running. You can stream us the entire first round, the entire second day, and the vast majority of the third day. If you want to put us on one screen and put the actual broadcast on the other, we will walk you through it just like the big boys do. So please join us. I hope that you will. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for joining me tonight. The end is near and the countdown is on. Chiefs are going to have a brand new crew of players here very shortly. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you tomorrow.